Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Matthew Steinke, and if you don't know, I review movies because that's what I do best. Today, we're reviewing It Chapter 2. It Chapter 2 was directed by Andy Muschietti and stars James McAvoy, Jessica Chastain, Bill Hader, Andy Bean, James Ransone, and Isaiah Mustafa, as well as Bill Skarsgård. Now, the plot of this film revolves around the Adult Losers Club going back to Derry, Maine, 27 years later to defeat Pennywise the Dancing Clown once and for all. Let's go ahead and get right into the positives. The acting. The acting in this film all across the board is incredible. The Adult Losers Club look like the child counterparts, and they really sell that these are the versions of those characters 27 years later. But there are two standouts in the film that are the best, and that's Bill Hader and Bill Skarsgård. Bill Hader is hilarious, he is captivating, he's entertaining, and he sells his dramatic points very, very well. You might have already heard that, and it's true. But also, Bill Skarsgård is fantastic as well as Pennywise the Dancing Clown. You can tell he's having fun, he is captivating as well, and he's also very, very entertaining. But he remembers to keep himself absolutely terrifying and creepy. And that's what makes him so good in this film. Now, you can't have Pennywise without having scares. And luckily, some of the scares in this film work very well. The way that some of these scares build their suspense and then end with their payoffs is very, very good. And like I said, there are good jump scares and there are bad jump scares, and some of these scenes have absolutely fantastic jump scares. My two favorite scares of the film being Mrs. Kirsch and being when Pennywise is talking to the girl underneath the bleachers. Both of those scenes build such fantastic suspense, and the payoffs are so terrifying that both of those scares are my favorite. They are just fantastic. Now, most of these scares aren't in the book, and if you're like me, you get kind of mad when a movie doesn't follow a book that well. And luckily, and not luckily in some cases, this movie follows the book very, very well. I was delighted to see some of my favorite scenes recreated on the big screen, most importantly being the Chinese restaurant one. That is my favorite. That scene is so funny, and if you've seen it, you know why. But also, Stephen King, the author of the original novel, he gets a small cameo as the pawn shop owner that is selling the adult Bill Denborough back his bike called Silver. And Stephen King has great lines, and he's a good actor as well. Now, this film has, like I said, spectacular acting, it has some great scares, and it follows the book very closely. And that's also a part of its downfall. It follows the book a bit too closely, and that's one of its negatives. So let's get into them. Like I said, this film follows the only part of the book that is the worst part of the book, in my opinion. And upon adapting that, it makes it very, very long. And what part of the book am I talking about? I'm talking about the Ritual of Chüd and Pennywise's entire explanation and backstory. Even though I've read the book, I was still confused sitting in the theater, and I can't imagine how confused people were who haven't read the book. They play that out in the book so long, and I don't understand why they adapted it into here, because they play it out just as long, and it's just as confusing, and it's just as convoluted, and it takes up the majority of the runtime. And that's a choice that really alienates the audience and keeps us looking at our watches instead of at the screen, because when you put something on the screen that takes up so much of the runtime and is confusing, people don't want to sit there. They're checking their watches. They're saying, when is this going to be over? And I really think that was a big mistake to adapt that part of the novel. And in that short amount of time dedicated to scares, some of them fall very flat. And I understand that Pennywise is a clown. He cracks a few jokes. He does a few things that are meant to be funny. But his main source of staying alive is making his prey feel scared. And some of the things that he does are they're really funny instead of being scary. And I think Pennywise is at his best when he's in a confined, small, creepy location. When he's in a cave or in a carnival or in a funhouse, those are wide open spaces, and they don't generate the same suspense as being in a small, confined space. And I agree with one of my other favorite movie critics, Chris Stuckman, when he said that part of what makes the first half of the book so endearing and relatable is that these kids are facing against something terrifying. Pennywise is so much scarier when viewed in a younger set of eyes. When he's viewed through adult eyes, it's not as scary because when you're a kid, you don't expect to have to defend yourself. And if the adults and if your parents don't believe you and you have a small group of friends facing against some terrifying clown demon, that's much scarier. When you're an adult, it's not that scary. I get scared when Pennywise jumps at a kid. I don't get scared when Pennywise jumps at a 6'5" grown man. And Pennywise against 6 adults isn't scary, no matter how many times he turns into a big spider. Now, I think right now those are the positives and those are the negatives, so let me just read word for word my conclusion, because it sums up my opinion on this movie pretty well. This film isn't bad. It's just okay. It feels like every single other horror movie that's been coming out for the past few months, actually. It's not as bad as Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, but it's not as good as the first It. When you're a kid, the fears that you face are far, far scarier than when you're an adult, like I've said. And the fears that these characters faced in the previous film feel much, much more intimidating than the fears that they experience in this film. I mean, the book, it's over 1,000 pages long, and this movie clocks in at almost 3 hours. And just like the book, there are so many scenes that could have been taken out. This movie should have been about 2 hours. Making the backstory of Pennywise as convoluted and confusing as it was in the book, to me, it just didn't flow well into this film. The backstory, like I said, is overtly long and confusing, and cramming the flashbacks as well as giving each character their own scare scene really makes the film's runtime feel like you're riding over a bumpy dirt trail instead of a smoothly paved road. In some scenes I checked my watch and I still had an hour left, and movies should have you looking at the screen the whole time, not looking at the exit sign. While I applaud Andy Muschietti for wanting to put so much of the book in the movie, I can't help but feel like it got a bit too carried away. Having poor characterization really makes a long movie feel really long. And that's exactly what this movie felt like. Long. In the end, there's still a lot to like here. And I would completely understand if you told me you liked it. The adult cast is great. Bill Hader is hilarious. Bill Skarsgård is great, and the forms that he takes are creative, spooky, and fun. This iteration of Pennywise is already iconic, and Bill Skarsgård plays him with the same fun, horrifying, disturbing creepiness as in the first. But I think I see myself watching the first movie over and over again more than I see myself watching this one. And with all the great things that are in this movie, the big issues really keep this movie from staying afloat. I would rate It Chapter 2 a 3 out of 5. Thank you guys for watching. Please post movies that you want me to review in the comments below, because I would love to do them. And make sure to subscribe, and as always, go watch movies. Bye.